Welcome to the Fathering Strong podcast, where we connect, engage, and empower fathers to be the best dads they can be for their families and communities. And now, your hosts are Bruce Stapleton and Pastor Eli Williams.
Welcome aboard, everybody. I'm Eli Williams, and this is the Fathering Strong podcast. I'm a husband, I'm a father, a grandfather, and an author, a pastor, and I'm the president of Urban Light Ministries, which is the nonprofit that powers Fathering Strong. I'm delighted today to have as my guest on this broadcast my friend, Jeff Pinkleton. Jeff and I have been acquainted with each other for many, many years. He's a faithful husband. He's a father. His ministry has included everything from being the director of the Springfield Christian Youth Ministries West. He's a writer. He's a blogger. He's the host of the Pinkleton Pull Aside podcast. And he is currently the executive director of the Gathering of the Miami Valley in Ohio. And I am blessed to be a part of that board. So, Jeff, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you here today.
Welcome. It's good to just see you guys and be on a screen. Eli and I usually see each other in person, so that's wild. And Bruce, I'll take seeing you however that gets to happen. So sometimes it may just be you showing up at Costco and helping me out when I've had a disaster happen to buying something way too big that doesn't fit my car.
I heard about that.
Of all people saving me that day was Bruce.
Well, that's good. Well, Jeff, there's a lot we could talk about today. I mean, really, we could do a whole series together. But on this episode of the Fathering Strong podcast, I want to focus in on your role as a dad, and specifically as a boy dad. Now, I know you've got a daughter, and you can talk about her if you'd like, but I'd like the focus for this particular episode to be on raising fathers. I hope that's okay with you for now.
I encouraged my daughter a little bit ago. I stopped the house after a meeting to tell her how incredibly kind someone was when we finished the meeting and say, hey, can I say one more thing to you? And they wanted to speak very, very graciously and kindly about my daughter. So I stopped at home after that meeting just to tell her and my wife about it. So she's already gotten some love today from someone who should mean a lot to her, not named Dad. So I'm fine talking about the boys.
Well, there you go. He just proved my point, ladies and gentlemen. He's a perfect guy for this particular segment. So let's get started. And to begin, I want to start with asking you about your boyhood.
Wow.
What was it like growing up in the Pinkleton household, Jeff?
Well, I've told people now you can't be young and know where I'm going with this. You have to be older, like the three of us are. But it was very beaver cleaverish. I had a few friends who probably qualified as Eddie Haskell. It was kind of this, cute little manicured, pedicured. A lot of things looked right. Didn't always mean that was necessarily true, but I had two sisters. My parents were together. Growing up, I didn't know much about divorce. I think I had maybe two friends who had a divorced household, but I only knew parents really being together. And I really longed for a brother. The male influence and me having a chance to influence males has been a desire of mine for as long as I can remember. So, my dad, my grandfather, I can't remember about my great-grandfather, but we have a long history of like one male in the family. So when I had three boys, I don't think there's ever been a moment once my third son was born when I thought, can you be more of a man than this? I produced, through my wife, three boys. Done. I've proven it. That was a big deal. Our name has lots of reasons why it should last forever. And I was pumped because, like I said, I always wanted a brother and had two sisters and loved them. But, the male influence both to me and from me has always been something I've cared a lot about.
All right. So you had the typical nuclear family, mom, dad, siblings.
Yep. Right neighborhood, right house, right school, you name it.
So as you think about it, what were the highlights of your growing up as a Pinkleton kid? What stands out to you? What is a memory that you have that comes to your mind as you think about your boyhood?
So I grew up, if people are in Springfield, they know this. If they don't, I grew up in a neighborhood called Raymar Estates. I mean, Eli, you obviously know it. It's been very famous for in June every year. There's a huge garage sale, Christmas lights. If you're heading down to Clifton Mill, south of town, it's a neighborhood that was big for Christmas lights. And I'm always been really cheap. Don't laugh too hard, Eli. You know that I'm cheap. And when my dad was wanting to put up, extravagant lights like my sisters wanted, I said, Dad, don't do it. They're not paying the bill. Nobody's paying the bill. And ours aren't going to be as good as our neighbors. So he would put like one row of lights down at the base of the roof, which I guess appeased everybody. But in our neighborhood, we had a really close knit of boys about my age. It was kind of the right neighborhood in Springfield in Shawnee School District to grow up. And we actually had, I love telling the story, we had T-shirts made up when we were probably pre-teenage years, and it said Raymar Raiders, and they were black with like glittery looking letters. And our plan was to go around to like Sunnyland and Limecrest and Possum Woods and just challenge those neighborhoods that we were going to beat them in anything. Kickball, wiffle ball, football. We were going to dominate. Like we were that close. I've never heard anybody else say they did that. We had probably about 10 or 12 of us, and we made up neighborhood T-shirts, and we were going to challenge all the Clark Shawnee Possum School neighborhoods in whatever sport. And one of those kids back then, I remember being at his house, 1980 Olympics, the famous Al Michaels, Do You Believe in Miracles? And it's interesting because Summer Olympics are going on right now, and I'll never forget being at that house, really thinking like, okay, I don't follow hockey closely, but I know my country, and I know the Russia hockey team is really good. Did we really just beat them? And USSR against USA. And there were many great memories growing up. We grew up in a small church, 5 or 6 houses down from where we lived. And we'd go down there, me and the neighborhood kids, and play kickball. And it couldn't have been more Americana perfect, what you hope is an ideal growing up.
So there you have it, a little bit about the Jeff Pinkleton Boyhood. And by the way, those of you who are listening, viewing this at other places outside of Springfield, we trust that there are many, or at least will be at some point, watching this who are not from Springfield. Springfield is probably the typical small American town, right, Jeff?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big city in a small package, basically, So, Jeff, you sound like you were, was it urban or suburban? How would you characterize the neighborhood in which you grew up?
It was suburban. I mean, Shawnee, I was not far from Shawnee High School. That's to this day still the neighborhood and the school district that people probably want to be in. I grew up in the era, Eli, you'd remember this. I don't know, Bruce, if you know this, but especially for people who aren't from Springfield, Newsweek magazine did a whole issue about what city best represents Midwest America. And it was Springfield. And the Capelli family used to have I think it's still around, Capelli Greenhouse or whatever. There were 4 other families. They spent the whole issue of that magazine in Newsweek on 5 families in Springfield. And when you think Americana back in that era, late 70s, early 80s, we were featured in one of the biggest magazines at the time on a national level. People talking about Springfield, Ohio. So I hope there's people in Tennessee listening, by the way. Can we give some love to the Tennessee Volunteers, Orange and White, Rocky Top? Let's bring in the Tennessee viewers, listeners.
Yeah, go Bucks. All right, so after this time out, we want to talk to you about your becoming a father for the first time. So be thinking about that, Jeff, and we'll discuss it when we come back after this break. This is the Fathering Strong podcast.
We dads and father figures need each other. We need a safe, non-judgmental place to share our stories, challenges, heartaches, and joys. Fathering Strong is just such a place. A new online community of connected, engaged, and empowered fathers. Learn more at www.fatheringstrong.com.
Welcome back. Our guest on the Fathering Strong podcast for this episode is Mr. Jeff Pinkleton, Boy Dad.
Boy Dad. I like that. Sounds good.
All right, Jeff. So what was it like becoming a dad for the first time? Share that experience with us.
Well, it was great. I mean, I can't, anybody, unless you just don't want to be a good dad, which is nobody. It was joy. I mean, finding out my wife was pregnant, and I laugh when people always talk about it. I'm sure you guys have both heard this a ridiculous amount of times that, I just want a healthy baby. I was very clear. I want a boy. I said, yeah, do I want the kid to be healthy? 100%. But I wanted a brother so bad growing up. I'm like, I want a boy. I want the family name to go on. I want a boy. And if someone would have told me I would have 4 kids and that the numbers would work out, I was a math major at one point, the numbers would work out 3 boys and 1 girl, I would have said that's exactly what I would love to have happen. So, having Jaden, my oldest, who's now 21, it was pure joy. We didn't find out what we were having with Jaden, and I was blown away. It was a boy. Second one, Ethan, we didn't find out. Blown away again. Super grateful for a boy. Third time, we found out, and when we found out we were having a boy, I remember we had that day. My wife had 2 doctor's appointments. There was a lunch break, so we went to lunch at Leonardo's here in Springfield. And I was really sad. I was like, man, and Kara kind of was too, like, why did we find out? It was all about wanting to be able to have the right stuff if it was a girl. But we loved the surprise. So when we had a 4th, my wife got pregnant, and it was not planned. We were like, oh, we're going to have a 4th. We thought 3. And then when we had a girl, I mean, it was pure joy because I was so glad to finally know what it was going to be like to be a girl dad. But, having 3 boys, it's been one of the greatest joys of my life.
So what, for you, Jeff, is the best thing? What's your favorite thing about being a parent?
Let me say off the bat, because I think you'll get to this, but in case you don't, I will say it is very, very hard. I think marriage is the hardest thing I've ever.
Well, we'll get to the challenging part.
Well, okay, good. Well, okay, I don't want to blow past that. I think having 4 kids and definitely 3 boys, it's interesting to see the ways they're very different, and it's interesting the ways they're similar. We've often said our oldest and youngest son have some similarities. Our middle son and our daughter have some similarities, but just at their ages at 21, 19, 17, and 15, seeing where they're coming into their own interests, likes, passions, frustrations, where they struggle, seeing them become like not just kids, but people, adults, their own niche. I love seeing my kids challenge me. I spent a lot of time at Panera, and I had a woman just walk up to me who I've known for years, and she kind of challenged me on something. And I said, do you know how loved I feel by you right now? I said, I feel so loved by how you challenge me. And 2 of my kids are pretty good at challenging me. One of them is my daughter, and one's one of my other sons. And they've made me more like Jesus. And it's through failure. It's through me not being a good dad at times. And it's me thinking I know better than I do, or trying to be more molding and shaping versus just handing them over to Holy Spirit and say, you mold and shape. But seeing who they've become and who they're becoming, and new stages and seasons of life with dating and potential marriage and move and all that. It never gets old, and there's always new and things to learn. And if I ever wake up in the morning and think I don't need Jesus, all I got to do is walk down a hallway and see, well, now 3 bedrooms, not 4, because Jaden's not living at home anymore. He's on his own. But
So now we get to the challenging part. What is it that is the most difficult for you when it comes to being a parent?
So we just took our oldest son out to dinner a couple weeks ago. He lives on his own, and we were talking about kind of his place in life and potential move to Chicago, and a girl he's dating who's great. We love her. And just, he made a comment about, hey, I've got to learn to fail sooner or later. And I'm thinking, well, some of that's happened, and I'm trying to, on one sense, keep you from failing where I can keep you from failing as far as advice, wisdom, making you think about things. But, finding that balance between parenting children versus parenting adults and handing them over to the Lord and say, okay, I still have a role. What is it? Less is probably more. Listening more than speaking is probably better. And I feel like I know a whole lot less about being a dad right now, 21 years in, than I did at any point in my life. I want to be encouragement. I feel like I'm leaned in more to praying for them at this point than I did when they were younger. And I would not want anybody to mirror my prayer life with my kids. It could have, should have been better. But, knowing what's my part, what's their part, and where God's just good and he's going to do what he's going to do. And I don't need him to be me. I've told him time and time again, two things I've always said is, I don't want you to be me, and I want you to have every advantage that me being your dad is, and everything that's a negative and crapola, pray it out. And, you're not, I'm not trying to create a mini version of myself.
All right. So you now have raised, or still in the process of raising 4 children, and you've shared with us your joys and some of the challenges of being a dad. That's good. Where I want to go next is, what advice would you give a young man who is about to become a parent, or expects to at least someday in the future become a parent? What would you tell them about being a father? And before you answer that, we're going to take our final time out, and we'll come back. This is Eli Williams. Jeff Pinkleton's with me. He's our guest on this installment of the Fathering Strong podcast. We'll be right back.
Do you know a new father who could benefit from a basic introduction to healthy fathering principles? POPS 101, a free online course consisting of 4 one-hour sessions in English or Spanish, could be perfect for him. POPS 101 lays out practical steps toward becoming the protector, order keeper, provider, and stabilizer his child needs. Learn more at urbanlight.org.
Thanks for being with me. Jeff Pinkleton is our guest today on the Fathering Strong podcast. He is the executive director of the Gathering of the Miami Valley. Now, that is a men's fellowship here in the Miami Valley, which is the Dayton, Ohio region of Ohio, West Central Ohio. You want to say just a word about the Gathering, Jeff, what that is, and how it might be of interest to some of the men who are following along here on our podcast?
Yeah, our tagline is connecting men to men and men to God. And I had lunch with a guy today who I've never spent time with one-on-one. And like I told him, I said, the one thing we have really going for us, and you've already alluded to it, you're on the board, Eli, and God has given us great favor with people who have come in and been a part of our breakfasts or lunch series or retreats or on the podcast. And we have great board members like you and Scott Griffith and Joe Collinsworth and Steve Stuckey and Carter Click and the rest. And, I just think I'm blessed to be around people who are way better than me and provide a lot of wisdom and insight and experience. And yeah, I think any guy that gets involved with us, as much as they may bless us, we may bless them. It's almost a little contest between who gets more of the blessing, them or us. Glad that you and I have had this season where we're not just working with kids together or sunshine clubs or whatever, but we're doing stuff to empower, equip, encourage men.
All right. Well, my final question for you. What advice would you, Jeff, give a father about raising boys especially?
Yeah. I think, we talk so much about a father's purpose in providing. We talk about that all the time, and that's good. When I talk about my dad, I always talk about he was a provider, good home, opportunities, experiences, all that kind of stuff. But, it's funny that we're doing this today. Literally this morning when I woke up in the middle of the night, I felt like God gave me a phrase, and some of these words are used together some, but I think it applies right now. And it's, life is made up of minutes, of moments, and memories. And it's easy to think moments and memories are tied together, or moments and minutes are tied together. But, I know you too well enough to know, certainly you, Eli, Bruce, you as well, that I'm incredibly blessed when I look at my life and think about a memory or a moment. Just run into this woman here at Panera today, real randomly, and she kind of shared a frustration she had with me months ago. And it was super in passing and no big deal, but I got a chance to humble myself and make sure she felt loved and encouraged by a comment I made to her that, kind of hit her heart a little bit. And, for as much as we talk about providing and getting our kids, our boys, the right stuff, the right shoes, the right pair of Jordans, this and that's financial or worldly, not that there's anything to itself that's wrong with that, but I'd much rather give them moments. When my oldest son, Jaden, and I went to a Cleveland Browns, Seattle Seahawks football game when he was, several years old, And, I can't remember, I think it was Seahawks kicked the field goal to win the game. And then we go to a Steelers-Titans game, the last time the Steelers won the Super Bowl, and it was the last loss of the year. And that image was my Facebook profile picture for years until he was so young. I'm like, okay, people are like, can you give us a different picture of Jaden? Or Ethan and I, at the right restaurant. And we've just had a lot of kind of memories like that, or taking him to a thrift store because he loves to thrift, or Alex, and I just visited 2 colleges in Indiana last week, Taylor and Indiana Wesleyan. And those minutes, those moments, those memories are going to super outlast some gift I bought them, or a hoodie, or a talking Elmo when Jaden was 1 year old. I mean, whatever it was, like those minutes, moments, memories are vital. And, when our kids are adults, we always get a chance, to do that. I mean, I've seen that in different ways or different contexts, communication wise, with you and Elijah, your son. And, I think that's vital. Providing, getting the right car when they're the age of driving a car, or write this or write that. They have their place, but let's create great memories and moments that are going to last forever. And they might be the smallest, most simple, subtle things. But, my dad used to take me to breakfast when I was, I think, in 8th grade, 7th grade, at a new place that just reopened, a cafe over by the old Possum School. And there was nothing super significant about it. I would get 2 chocolate Bismarcks and a glass of milk. My dad would get 2 eggs and toast, probably a cup of coffee. I remember to this day what we ordered. He ordered the same thing every time. I ordered the same thing every time. It was not a big deal. He took me to Indianapolis 500. He took me to Final Fours. Those were great. They were awesome memories. But I remember him taking me to Gamble's right across from Possum, and then I'd go to school, and he'd go about traveling for work. And those moments meant a lot to me.
That's very wise advice, Jeff. Thank you so much. We tell fathers all the time that it is so important for you to set aside time on a regular basis for your children, because they value that more than anything you can buy them, and more than anything you can give them. It's your time. Children spell love, time, and your minutes, moments, and memories certainly goes right along with that idea that giving of your time is the best gift you can give your children. And that wraps up today's podcast.
Can I say one more thing?
This episode of Fathering Strong. Sure, go ahead.
You told me we were going to be on here for like an hour to hour and a half, and it says 22:41 up here. What does that say about me? Can Bruce speak or say something? Because I had us being on here a whole lot longer. So I think some of your other guests have been on here for an hour and a half. What?
No.
Did I say something wrong,
No.
or am I getting canceled, or what?
No. This is right in the bullseye of what we're aiming for, Jeff. So thanks a lot. What it says is that you are able to say a lot in a few minutes, and so that's good.
Well, our friend Bill Brown used to always tell me, and he maybe said it to you at some point, that a little Jeff Pinkleton goes a long way. So,
okay, amen to that. That's not a
there
slap.
you go.
Yeah, so that does wrap up this edition of the Fathering Strong podcast. And we want to remind you that fatheringstrong.com offers a myriad of resources, including our weekly Fathering Strong blog posts. There are devotionals there, and videos, fatherhood courses, and a whole lot more. So we invite you to explore fatheringstrong.com today. That's fatheringstrong.com. Thanks, Jeff, for being our guest today.
Pleasure.
We really appreciate it, sir.
It was a pleasure. Always good to share time, and we've never had too many super duper superficial conversations. So hopefully this was good, meaty stuff and added a little value.
It was excellent, Jeff. I'd like to have you back.
We'll do it.
Next week on the Fathering Strong podcast, we'll welcome Jason Messer, who will share his experiences raising a special needs child. Join us, won't you? Our best guidance for raising children is found in the scriptures. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Proverbs 22:6. That's good advice, wise counsel from the Word of God. May the Lord bless you as you give your child what no one else on earth can, and that is your fully developed father love. That's Fathering Strong.
Fathering Strong is powered by Urban Light Ministries, a not-for-profit organization serving the needs of families and children for nearly 30 years. Your support helps us continue turning the hearts of fathers to their children, while meeting some of the immediate critical needs of struggling families with small children. Contributions of all sizes are welcomed at www.urbanlight.org.
The Fathering Strong podcast is a production of Urban Light Ministries, with technical assistance from the Momentum Group, and Harold Rayford provides the theme music. So thank you for listening.